Micro brews, dude.
Dude. Craft brews and casual conversations. The man who we thought retired has made his triumphant return to the world of podcasting, to the world of entertainment, and to just the world, I guess. Derek from Sometimes Geek is back. How you doing?
I'm good. And yeah, we always say that we're going to take a break from creating things, and that just never happens.
Right. Yeah, it always keeps on going. So I got the news maybe like a week or two ago about the Sometimes Geek podcast making a return, but it's a little bit different this time around.
Yeah. So when I initially launched the Sometimes Geek podcast, how long have we known each other now? 7 years?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So probably about 7 years ago, I rolled out the Sometimes Geek podcast, rolled around with a couple different formats before settling on a weekly show where I covered gaming news topics. And this time around, I figured, you know what, rather than trying to force myself into a weekly show, because I just don't have the time for that, and B, trying to cover gaming news, which has its own difficulties when, especially around wintertime, things start to slow down on the news front. Instead, I would do more of a casual, it's a mix between a deep dive and a history of gaming podcast and culture topics and things like that. But I still try to keep it fairly light, and also allowing guests to come onto it rather than doing it solo this time around, to just geek out about gaming stuff that they like or topics they want to talk about as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you and I go back and forth every once in a while about various video games. I finally beat Fallout 4 this year, which is took me forever. And then I wanted to play Fallout New Vegas. So I had to get the PlayStation, whatever, the Netflix of the PlayStations kind of deal. And I started playing it now that I've gone back to work full time and everything like that. That's kind of taken a halt, and I got to revisit it hopefully around Christmas time and really get some binging on. But yeah, video games, we talk from time to time about the different games that we play, and you're much more knowledgeable on it. But yeah, kind of like the weekly podcast, it's hard to find time to even play video games anymore. But I think it's been ingrained in my life so much, and now I'm even seeing like my 11-year-old. He's really starting to get into the gaming world too. But it's so much different for him than it was for me, which is kind of wild. But yeah, I'm pumped that you're coming back. The first episode has been released.
Yeah, so the first episode's out. It's just I want to say like a 20-minute, just, hey, here's what the show is. This is what I've been doing with the other shows I've been working on, as well as just a quick review of what I was playing over the summer. That is one of the things with swapping back to, like, taking a break from GCP, kind of taking a step back from that. It gave me a lot more time to sit and actually catch up on that back catalog. And so that's part of why the focus is, every 2 weeks. It gives me time to play stuff still. I still have time to, hang out with my wife rather than sit in front of a microphone all the time. But yeah, so the first episode's out. Like I said, it's just kind of a recap of what I've been up to. And then at the time of this recording, I actually have another episode releasing tomorrow.
Awesome.
Which is a kind of a history deep dive into arcade games.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, it all kind of spawned from a recent trip I took, a big nerd trip to Japan, where I came across it's tough to describe. It's a physical arcade machine of Pong, which people think, oh, okay, yeah, just an arcade machine in the wild. But this one physically had like a square puck that would move around on the board.
Oh, interesting.
So, and it was something that I had never really seen before. Like, I've played tons of arcade games. I've played tons of video games. And for whatever reason, that just escaped my knowledge. And so it got me thinking about, okay, what other arcade stuff do I not know about? And that's kind of what spawned the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And the world of the arcade is really it's making its comeback to a degree. As long as you're 21 or older, at least in Wisconsin, there's barcades galore where they're slinging the drinks, and then they have rooms full of pinball machines, the old school games, and holy crap, is it like impossible to play those? I feel like I really struggle with. I was playing like the original, was it the original Mario where Donkey Kong's throwing
Oh yeah.
the barrels at you, and I was like dying in 10 seconds. I was like, how did anybody do this back in the day? It's almost like a lost art. So
It is, but also you got to remember all that stuff was created just to sink money.
right.
So they were meant to be as hard as they were, which is also why you run into the same difficulty spikes in like the old Nintendo games and stuff like that, because they were modeled after those games.
Yeah, absolutely. And even going back on like the NES classic or whatever that they released forever ago now, but when we go back and play those with my kids, I'm always like, I get so pissed off because it's just so hard, and I'm like, I feel like I play like pretty like sometimes difficult games, and I don't have as much trouble as I do just jumping over a little thing in a mine cart on
Oh yeah.
on Donkey Kong, which is no, but that's pretty sweet. Yeah, the arcade thing is a lot of fun, and it's cool. But outside of that, what have you been playing?
I'm gonna give one game that nobody, even a lot of gamers, haven't really been following. It's called Metaphor Refantasio. It's from the same people who made the Persona games and whatnot. So super JRPG heavy story. That's been kind of my time sink lately. Playing a lot of Fortnite, oddly enough.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, during kind of around the pandemic, hanging out on Discord with my brother, and my wife wanted to check it out, and we just kind of got a group going on that. So we hop in there every couple weeks or so.
Yeah, my son started playing Fortnite. He's 11. I mean, and then I'm shocked by how many little kids are on that platform and playing that stuff. He plays it on the Switch. People can debate me on whether it's appropriate or not, but it's fine. He does fine. He doesn't like try to like attack people at school, so that's always important. But yeah, he's been doing the Fortnite stuff, and I played it like one time seriously. He gave me the Switch and he's like, hey, give it a shot. I was like, all right, and I took like 12 plays. I was pretty pumped. I was pretty proud of myself.
That's solid for your first game.
Yeah,
I think my first game I got maybe 2.
okay,
And that was back when you could only do build. Like we all play no build because we're old and we don't have those reflexes that you see YouTube videos of where people are just building insane towers in 10 seconds. So
yeah,
it's kind of evened out the curve. It got those of us that, grew up playing GoldenEye and stuff. It gave us a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course though, like, he was it the V-Bucks and all that stuff too. And I mean, Fortnite really has a good system. You get the game for free, but then you sink all your money into all this extra shit and these battle passes and game passes or whatever the heck they are. It's a pretty sweet model that I'm surprised that, and maybe I'm just like ignorant to it, but I don't know that too many other games that are doing that.
You see a lot of them nowadays. Actually, you'll see what's called the live service games, stuff that once they sink in, they want that initial, like a Roblox or a Fortnite, or even stuff like Call of Duty Warzone.
Yeah,
it's like free to play where you could buy the cosmetics. And it's a business model that has been super popular, at least for the last 5 or 6 years. But we're seeing a lot more pushback on it now, because when you think about it, the kind of games that you're going to sink money into for skins or weapon wraps or anything like that all tend to be the same kind of just run around and shoot and show off. And there's just not, like, I want to say it was Concord, I think PlayStation put out, where it just immediately flopped. Like it lasted, I think, 2 weeks.
Okay.
So there is definitely a pushback we're seeing against that stuff now.
The only like game that I got sucked into quite a bit, and I did spend some money on it, not a ton, but it was and then recently, I don't think it exists anymore. Simpsons Tapped Out on the phone. I think I'm pretty sure it's gone. It's in a grave somewhere, and you can just peruse abandoned cities of Springfields that you built. So I was really like dedicated to that, and then I sunk in some money on that, and then after a while I was just like, all right, I can't do this anymore.
You're just it's once you realize like I'm just wasting money that I could have spent on a different game. And I've been guilty of that. I've spent money on V-Bucks. I got their monthly battle pass thing. And then like I actually had to set an allowance for my wife of no, you are not buying more V-Bucks. You already bought some last week. So she definitely gets sunk into it as well. But I mean, the way I look at it, when it comes to free to play games, I've played so many of them that if I find
Right.
something that I actually want to go back to, I don't mind dropping, $10 here and
Right.
there.
Right. Yeah, that's not too bad. I mean, outside of that, I haven't. I have a couple. I have the PS5, but I have played more PS4 or PS3 games on it than I have
Mhm.
PS5 games. I tried the Hogwarts Legacy. I couldn't get into it. I sunk a good like 15, 20 hours into it. And I was just like, all right, I've had enough.
That's totally fair. I mean, right now, I mentioned I was playing that JRPG. Like I'm almost 30 hours, I think, is what I capped out at right before I
Mhm.
hopped on this episode. There's games where I will do that, but then there's plenty of games, especially with like you mentioned the PlayStation, Netflix model.
Mhm.
I have the same thing on Xbox, the Game Pass.
Right.
There are plenty of games where I've hopped in for maybe an hour and be like, okay, I'm good. I got my fill. So I
Yeah.
totally get that.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to that arcade mentality a little bit. If you grew up in that era, where you bounce from game to game to game, sometimes that just gets reignited a little bit, and I'm just like, I just couldn't get. I don't know, like it was cool and all, and I was like, all right, but it took me forever to get to fucking anywhere I needed to go,
Mhm.
and I would hop on my broom and all that kind of stuff, and I was just like, all right, I just got to be a little old, and people are like, "Oh, it's like GTA but with Hogwarts," and I was like, "No, it's not, uh, not at all." But
Unless I see, Harry Potter pulling out a Glock or something, I'm not.
yeah, give me.
I'm not going to make that comparison.
I'm not picking up wenches, and throw or anything like that. But yeah, outside of that, my gaming life has been put a little bit on pause. But that's just life. That's just how it goes. Unfortunately, the older I get, the less time I have, and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I totally get that. Having a job like you going back to school and whatnot, it's like
Mhm.
I'm surprised that you're playing anything, honestly.
Yeah, I mean it's been a couple months since I've played it. Again, like we get the free games on the PlayStation and stuff, and anytime like my 11-year-old gets stuck on something, he always hands me the controller and is like, all right, you have to figure this out for me. So I've done that with we got the security breach for the Five Nights at Freddy, which is actually a really fun
Oh, okay.
game. It's pretty cool. Like I like the stealthy stuff, and he's really into it. So it's kind of cool to watch, like my kids play video games a little bit and kind of get into it like I did when I was their age. My parents, they weren't really gravitating too much towards video games when I was growing up. So like when I played it, it was just like I just played it to a room of nobody. I was just playing it
Yeah.
because I enjoyed it, and but here it's like it's nice to watch like my kid do it, and then he knows like, oh, Dad's got some juice left in him, like he can get me through this tough stuff. And then sometimes I'm like, no, man, you got to figure it out yourself. Like you have to struggle. And he's like, well, I'll just watch it on YouTube. I'm like, no, dude, like you can't,
Yeah.
you can't do that. You have to fail over and over again. There's so many times that we've played video games and you had those strategy guides that were
Mhm.
6,000 pages wide, but otherwise you just had to struggle. And I think
Yeah, you had the struggle, you had the schoolyard conversations of, oh, well, what about this? How come you
right.
didn't check this out? And that is definitely something I, even with the growing of communities around different online gaming spots, there's just nothing quite like that.
Hmm.
And that's part of like what got me back into doing Sometimes Geek. My friend Justin Revan Fuego, who was one of the co-hosts on Grit City Podcast
Yeah.
that I was on for a bit, he branched out and he brought back a show that he did, or basically a spinoff of a show that he used to do for the radio called Geek Nation.
Hmm.
And his excitement, like once he started posting teaser stuff, I knew exactly what he was doing. So I hit him up and it goes back to those nerdy conversations that we were having, that kind of like his excitement for what he was creating and to have these nerdy conversations also reignited my passion for those kind of conversations as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember back in the day, like having the PS2, throwing it into my backpack, riding across town to my friend's house, hooking it up, and we would, I don't know, we gravitated towards the game Manhunt. And I don't know if we've talked about that before, but that's a pretty like you just murder people. Like,
Oh yeah,
I think it was a Rockstar game.
yeah, it was. God, yeah, that was a long time ago. Yeah, the whole point I think is that it was battle royale before battle royale, really.
Kind
Like you
of
were the one trying to survive against everybody else and fight your way out.
right, and you were like, I never beat it, but like you're just a guy who woke up in this like warehouse, kind of like a Saw situation
Yeah,
to a
yeah.
degree, and then you had to just like, yeah, dudes are trying to kill you, and you gotta kill them, and it was always just so like the longer you wait, the more brutal like the attack is and stuff like that. But that was always a lot of fun, and that was or going to like a Blockbuster or Family Video or something like that, and renting the games. It's crazy how different it is now. But to a degree, like Game Pass or this PlayStation thing too is like kind of like renting a game. It's going through looking at the shelves, finding what you want to play, and then giving it a shot. And now too, I think it's actually nice to have such advanced technology with the gaming stuff too, because you can connect with people. Like you have a friend that moves away, I can play Dead by Daylight with my friend who lives in Hawaii and stuff like that, or Rob in California. So it's pretty cool that way. I think. Do you do a lot of online stuff like that?
Not a whole lot these days, like I did mention, in the same way that, you play in Dead by Daylight with Rob or your friend in
Yeah,
Hawaii. That's what Fortnite has become for us,
sure.
because it's hanging out with my wife in her office. She's on her computer. I'm on my computer. My brother's playing on his Xbox, three cities over, and just reconnecting. And it's less of I find myself less going into just playing with random people and making friends that way, like I
Right.
used to do.
Right.
And it's more just a way to reconnect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. But so going back to your journey to Japan, I saw a handful of the pictures. It looked like it was a pretty awesome time. You branched into the world of like some tabletop games too, right?
Yeah. So another thing that kind of came out of the pandemic was my wife and I looking for stuff to do other than, just getting drunk and watching Netflix or
Right,
whatever.
right.
We branched out into playing a lot of board games.
Nice.
And so our collection went from, I want to say, like when we moved into the house, we had 5 or 6 like heavier board games. I say heavier from a, just playing Yahtzee or Monopoly
Mm-hmm.
standpoint. And like especially over the last couple years, we got super heavy into them, finding a lot of what clicked for styles of games she liked to play and what I like to play. And our collection got up to like 60 in
Dang,
the span of 2 years.
that's awesome.
And so, yeah, while we were over in Japan, I was hanging out on the board game subreddit, and people would post every few months or so, like, "Hey, I'm going to Tokyo. What should I pick up? What's a Japanese specific board game?"
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I found out that, there was a game shop, I want to say 10 minutes walk from where we were staying, that was highly recommended on the subreddit. And I ended up picking up this game called Viking Seesaw, where it's basically just like a seesaw version of Jenga.
Okay, that's cool.
And yeah, the whole point is that you're putting stuff on each side of the ship, and if stuff falls off, you have to collect it, and whoever has the least by the end of it wins.
Oh, nice.
So just a super simple game. Like we had to, Google Translate the instructions
Oh,
for
sure.
the first couple times we played it, but now it's like, oh, okay, it's a basic game. We could figure it out.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So what else was Tokyo like? What was your main mission in Tokyo?
Honestly, it was just to experience another country, because I had never left the country before.
Yeah, neither have I.
And so that was a big part. And it was also a kind of belated unofficial honeymoon for the wife and I.
Okay, cool.
I've been married for 7 years now, and we had never really had that away trip together other than, go to a convention or something like that. And so it was just the stars aligned. We were both big nerds. It's something we had always wanted to do as a bucket list item,
Oh
and
yeah.
we made it work.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you like was it centered around like touristy stuff, or did you kind of just like wake up and go, let's try this?
Yeah, it was definitely touristy. Like we stayed in so the way that Tokyo is, it's a bunch of smaller districts. So if
Okay.
you think like New York or something where you have the
Yeah,
different
yeah.
boroughs and whatnot, Tokyo's a giant version of that.
Nice.
And so we stayed in Akihabara, which is the anime nerd capital, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally every shop we would go into, there would be anime playing or figurines, stuff like that. And then we would spend like a half day going to Shibuya or Harajuku or Shinjuku, and we would like bounce over there and do touristy stuff there. So like we visited shrines, we found food that we wanted to try, we did shopping in just like this random store, Don Quixote, that everybody goes to
That's
because it's
awesome.
like basically if you took a like a Walmart and then made it 6 floors, that's basically what it is.
Oh, wow.
So it was a mix of just nerdy stuff that was on our bucket list that we wanted to check out. Um, some cultural stuff like going to Meiji Jingu Shrine and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
as well as also just checking out some random stuff that we had seen on YouTube like years ago. Like we ended up realizing as we were looking for, so to backtrack a little bit, um, we were spending like half days basically in each of these, and then going back to Akihabara for the evening. And mostly it was because we underplanned our trip by design. We wanted to just like go at our own pace,
Mm-hmm.
but also it gave us a chance to rest before we would go back out again. So we're walking 2-3 miles every
Mm-hmm.
day, go back, rest our feet, and then do another 3 miles or so. And then we ended up finding out that this spot that's known as the haunted vending machines
Oh, nice.
was like a 5-minute walk from the hotel we were staying at.
Oh,
So
hell
we had a
yeah.
chance to go and check that out in person.
That's awesome. Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. I've never left the country either, so getting to experience that would be pretty great. Did you get into any? Did they have like any like beers or any good like Japanese like liquor or anything like that you got to try?
So we did try Sapporo,
Okay.
which is, you can get that in the States.
Yeah.
But that was my first time actually trying it there. We did actually get into the culture of the Japanese highball, which
Okay.
we had never really, like, I didn't know it was a thing. Like most restaurants you go to, you might get, vodka, soda or whatever,
Sure.
um, or a beer typically. They would, but all these other restaurants we would go to, and it didn't matter if it was like a chain restaurant or a sit down restaurant, but the highball was a thing there where it's literally um, Japanese whiskey. I think it was Suntory whiskey
Okay.
and soda,
Oh,
soda water.
nice.
Yeah, and so that kind of became our tradition. Like every time we would go at a restaurant, we would try whatever highball they had, and 9 times out of 10, it was Suntory whiskey.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I've definitely branched into the world of bourbon over last few years, to the point where I stood in line with Josh, the original co-host. A couple weekends ago, we stood outside for 4 hours, waiting to get some allocated bourbon and stuff like that. And it's delicious.
Wow.
I got what I wanted, and I was happy about
I
it.
was gonna say it was worth the 4 hour wait.
Yes, it was. It was.
Okay.
It really was. And me and Josh got to catch up for a while. We stood
Oh, that's
outside.
true.
We froze our ass off. It was 5 a.m. that we got there.
Oh,
And
jeez.
there's two dudes that were in sleeping bags, so they slept the night outside for some of the stuff, which is, that call us crazy for getting there at 5, but I think those guys are a little crazier for spending a night for a bottle
I,
of booze.
I can't really blame them. I've gone to midnight releases for video games and had friends camp out, so I
Yeah.
totally get it.
Yeah, I mean, like Black Friday's coming up just around next week, and I remember the days of driving past Best Buy and there's tents galore for
Oh yeah,
all this different stuff. So it's yeah, if you want something, then yeah, you just gotta go for it.
if you're passionate about it, I mean, that's what makes it worth it. Like I personally wouldn't stay 4 hours outside in the cold
Yeah,
at 5 a.m. for whiskey or bourbon, but again, it's a thing you're passionate about, so I totally get it.
yeah. It wasn't too cold. I mean, it's snowing right now, so if it was like this outside, I'd be like, nah, I'm skipping this. But yeah, hard to find. Delicious stuff though. I love it very much. So yeah, man, I'm really excited for you. I'm excited for the show to make its return. So no more Grit City then for a little bit. Or
So I'm still like I was a guest on one of their episodes a couple weeks ago, so I'm
Okay.
still hanging out with them here and there.
Mm-hmm.
The format of it changed, so that's kind of why I took a step back. Um, Also, part of what brought Sometimes Geek back is that I was doing kind of a gaming corner, like a once a month, 15
Yeah.
minute episode or so, just to talk about random topics. And I figured, okay, well, if I'm doing this, I might as well do it myself,
Right.
make it longer, and I'll just snip stuff for them. So I'm still doing that with them. And like I said, I'm not a co-host on every episode, but I'm still around.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's always good to have, those different outlets to be creative and talk with people and stuff like that too. Every time like I have a guest on, Rob's usually not on it. And people are always like, "Did you kick Rob off the show?" I was like, "No, he's one, he's busy, and trying to navigate our schedules is already difficult enough." So I know he knows, he knows when I'm talking to other people and stuff like that.
I'm gonna give him a hard time right now because I was like, hey, maybe Rob will actually be around for this one. Maybe I'll finally get a chance to talk to him in person, but I guess not.
No, he'd probably have some good things to say about video games. I mean, I remember when he moved out to California, and we talked about it. Like he put down a security deposit for a place that didn't exist, and then he ended up that first week just living in a hotel because he had nowhere else to go. And he's gaming the whole time. And he found a good place. He found a good place to live, but in the downtime, he's like, he was just streaming. I forget what game it was, but he was on Twitch and he was just streaming. I think me and one other person were watching, and it was good. I'd like to get into Twitch still. That's still like one of my goals is get a Dudes with Brews on Twitch. I don't know
so
when the
much
fuck
work.
I'm gonna do it. Right.
Yeah, like a couple years ago, I know you and I kind of chatted a little bit when I was doing Husband and Strife over on Twitch. And it's like that, even that I reverted back to Sometimes Geek if I decide I ever want to go back to it. But I'm just like, I like playing games as my downtime.
Mm-hmm.
So to make an excuse of, with podcasting, I can record whenever, I can backlog, I can change up the topics.
Right.
With Twitch, it's like I have to be on at the same time every day.
Right.
To play a specific game because a lot of people don't follow the variety streamers. They want to see the Fortnite players or what have you. So it was one of those, like, it was fun. And actually I did interact with Rob in one of my streams. I know he hopped into the chat and was bugging me a little bit and having fun.
That's cool.
But yeah, it's like even trying to watch Twitch, it's like I am not a time and place kind of person.
Right. And I was looking into it, and you get to get like the certain status or whatever, you have to have so many subscribers or followers by a certain time. You have to have, like you said, you have to log in or stream like 7 times in a certain amount of days, and it's just like holy shit, like that's, if you're going for it, go for it. That's great. But if you really gotta look into that stuff before you just like take that dive. If you're gonna be casual about it, that's cool too. But if you're trying to make money and all that kind of stuff, I don't know how people do it. I really don't. I don't know how people make money podcasting. I've made some in the past, but not recently. And it's just
and that was kind of the perspective that was given to me over the last probably 2 years or so. It's like, for a long time I was trying to just be like, oh, okay, maybe I could do this for a living. Yeah. And maybe this will be like my life's calling. And doing the Twitch streaming and having like 1 to 2 people, if that, watching every time I was on, I was like, okay, that was a little disheartening.
Yeah.
But then like going over to Grit City Podcast, like I knew what their numbers were like. Like they were doing, 500 downloads an episode or something every week.
Yeah.
Fantastic numbers. But one of the things that I realized, I was like, okay, I'm not logging in to upload the episodes. I'm editing their Patreon content here and there. I don't know how much money they're bringing in from Patreon. I'm not seeing the download numbers episode to episode. And it didn't matter. I was still creating just because I wanted to create. And so now it's like, okay, doing Sometimes Geek. I'm like, okay, cool. The first episode, it's been out for 2 weeks. It got 20 downloads. Hell, that was the first episode and I barely promoted it. I'll take that.
Right.
Because I'm not worried about it, taking off. It's not going to be my day job anymore.
Right.
It's just out there because I want to do it.
Yeah. Fun thing to do. That's awesome. And I think when you do it that way and you take that approach, the content's better. The content will be, what you want. It'll be more genuine and everything like that. So I'm looking forward to the future episodes, man. Let the people know where they can follow you, where they can get Sometimes Geek and all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So wherever you're listening to this podcast, you can search for the Sometimes Geek Podcast. I will say that if you look on Spotify, for some reason, somehow the old episodes are archived. So if it's got the rainbow logo, that's the old one. That's not the one I'm doing now. So when you look and you're like, oh, well, the last episode was, 5 years ago. That's why.
Right.
Or easier than that, if you go to my link tree, linktr.ee/sometimes geek, you can find it there. Or, hit up any of my social medias. I'm typically on Instagram and Threads nowadays at Sometimes Geek. Also giving Blue Sky a chance. So, you can find me pretty much anywhere with Sometimes Geek.
I gotta look into this Blue Sky thing. I have no idea. It's like a new age Twitter kind of.
Yeah, it's from the guy who originally made Twitter before he sold it off.
Oh, okay.
And so it's 100% old Twitter.
Oh, all right. Well, I mean, can't be any worse than the shit that Twitter is now. So
Yep. I actually just deleted my Sometimes Geek account over there yesterday. So
we still have ours, but we don't use it. We don't even post on it, and it's just place is a fucking cesspool. But Derek, I appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate you having me.